Hi everybody, Top Tip Tuesday. Today I've got some tips about diving with torches and underwater lights. So when I first started scuba diving, a dive torch was kind of just for night diving, but now it's become a pretty essential piece of kit that I take with me on every single dive, and there are plenty of tips on how to use them better as a scuba diver, so let's jump straight in. The beam angle of a torch is a huge feature. Spotlights are better for piercing through poor visibility and communicating. Floodlights are better for photography and videos so that it lights everything without being too obvious in your video. For spotlights, look for beam angles under 20 degrees. Floodlights, they're all usually larger than 100 degrees, but look for hot spots and edges when you're looking for a floodlight. Some torches, you can change the beam angle on the dive, on the go, but most divers use a spotlight most of the time. They tend to be the most practical. The beam angle is where most of the light is focused, but you usually have a corona of light around it which is less bright. This is beneficial for spotlights so that you can focus on one thing in particular but still see around it. It still illuminates everything else, but for photography and videos, it will really stand out if you have a hot spot. So if you want to get a good light for videos, look for a beam with no bright spots or really hard obvious edges. It should be an even brightness all over with very, very soft, gentle edges so that you can't see exactly where the light ends. Your torch is a very effective tool for communicating with one another. Sounds travel very well underwater, but it's hard to tell exactly where that sound is coming from, but a torch beam can be used to get someone's attention by shining it at them, or better across their torch beam so you're not blinding them, but your buddy can then follow your torch beam back to where you are. A torch beam is also great for just letting your buddy know that you're close by and that everything is okay. If you can see your buddy's torch beam out of the side of your vision, you know roughly where they are compared to you, and if the beam is moving nice and gently around, then chances are they're okay. If the beam disappears or if the beam is shaking and frantic, then there could be something wrong. So it's a great way of staying in touch with your buddy without having to turn around all the time. Your torch beam has consequences. If you shine your torch directly into another diver's face, then your popularity rating is going to plummet. Floodlight torches are the worst for this because you don't really have to point them directly at them to shine it in their eyes. They're still going to see it because they're wide beam angles, but the same goes for wildlife. If you shine a light directly at a fish, especially at night, do your best to move the light away, and if you want to point at something in particular, draw a circle around it so you're not just shining it in their face, ruining their vision and really pointing them out for, predators. Modern electronics are pretty good nowadays, but anything with moving parts at depth underwater shouldn't be fiddled around with too much. If you're on a night dive, it's usually best practice to turn the torch on before you even get wet, and then do not turn it off until the end of the dive. The last thing that you want to do is for the torch to not turn back on mid-dive. So if it's running, great, leave it, but don't turn it off unless you really have to until the end of the dive. Redundancy is key while scuba diving. A small compact backup torch can get you out of a terrible situation, say if your primary floods. Even a low power torch is better than nothing should your main torch flood during a dive. Diving during the daytime, you can still come across some unexpected dark areas, and if you're lost at sea, any kind of artificial light will help you be seen, so bring a small backup torch with you on every single dive. Technically a torch, lasers emit light, but you can find a handful of underwater lasers today. I'm going to call them torches. Whilst more practical than an aluminium pointing stick for pointing at things without getting too close to them, especially if they're dangerous, lasers themselves are more dangerous for shining in eyes, so do be careful with them. Shining in divers' eyes is a big no-no. Shining in fish's eyes is also a big no-no, so do be careful with them. If you need to look at your gauges but it's too dark to actually read them, shine your torch on the gauges but do not look at it whilst you're shining your torch at it, and that's a great way to blind yourself mid-night dive. Most, if not all, gauges have glow-in-the-dark paint and, well, they glow in the dark when you shine a light on them for a short while. Black-faced gauges are better than white-faced gauges when you're diving in low light conditions, but the glass front will still reflect your torch, so shine your torch on it to charge it up, take your torch away and then look, not before, otherwise you're just going to blind yourself. You'll find a similar problem shining your torch on sand. Do your best to not shine your very powerful torch on the white sand if you want to maintain your night vision. If you can't adjust your power of the torch on the go, just kind of cover the front of the torch with a couple of fingers. It lets you kind of fine tune the output on the go and how much light is coming out between your fingers. You don't always need 2000 lumens to see where you're going, so it's quite nice to cover it up from time to time. Most torches are, well, torch shaped, but that uses up one of your hands to actually hold on to it, which if you need to do something, you then need to put your torch away, do the thing, and then get the torch back out again, which can be a bit cumbersome. So some torches can be fitted with a Goodman style handle so that the torch can actually be fitted to the back of your hand and you can still use your hand. Just be aware of where your torch is shining when you're reaching around for things, but a Goodman style handle is far more practical when you're actually in the water. When you're on the surface, an SMB is a great way to get noticed, but in the dark, it's only when the search boat actually shines a light on that DSMB that you'll actually notice it. If you take your torch and you shine your light into the buoy, the entire thing will glow yellow or orange. Still use your torch to kind of shine around to catch someone's attention, but shining a torch into the buoy can be less dazzling when they start to get close while still being able to see you properly in the water. And those were just a few handy tips for torches that I could think of today. I'm sure there's plenty more rattling around in my head, but what tips do you wonderful divers have? Let everybody know down in the comments below. If you enjoyed this or found it useful in any way, then I do one every single Tuesday, so subscribe to the Simply Scuba channel to see more, and of course head over to simplyscuba.com to check out our range of dive torches. Thank you for watching everybody, and of course, safe diving.